Very, very happy to introduce our next speaker, Eileen Myles. Can almost say that everything started with Eileen Myles, was the first poet I had ever met, and Eileen had actually launched in 1992 a do-it-yourself campaign as a poet to be President of the United States. And it's this do-it-yourself president campaign which became part of the Do It project, which brought us then to a journey we made together to Iceland. Eileen Myles is born in 1949 in Cambridge, lives in New York. Her recent books include The Importance of Being Iceland, essays of 2009, as well as Sorry Tree poems from 2007. She ran the St. Mark's Poetry Project in the 1980s, and is also Professor Emeritus at the University of California in San Diego. A very, very warm welcome to Eileen Myles.
That's good, huh? Hi. You know, the first thing, I'm going to read a bunch of poems. The first one I'm going to read is dedicated to Kathy, which is Kathy Opie, and I had the situation of finishing a novel, and she offered me the use of her beautiful glass house out in the wilderness. So I did the typical poet thing, which is to kind of compose a poem for my host. I think, you know, talking about the art world and poetry, the thing I was thinking was that poets of my generation who are sort of like, when I see that John Ashbery picture, I think, Dad, you know, because John had that, we had that relationship to him. But I think a lot of us turned away from the art world because it was such a requirement at a certain time to be a poet involved in the art world. And so it seemed the punk thing to do was to not do that. But then I think for others of us later, the way to reject the poetry world was to turn towards the art world. So it sort of spins around. But it seems like at this point in time, it makes more sense for the art world to court poets than, it would have to be different if there really was to be this détente between poets and artists. So in a way, the art world would have to decide why it wanted poetry, which is, you know, your problem. The nervous entertainment. Just when I thought I should break it up, the other one licked from across the room, a red echo, and a blue one slithered on the star leg of an Eames-type office chair. I saw a rainbow in a gush today, soft green mountain. I couldn't write about because my recorder kept checking itself and wouldn't work. I'm happy because I don't work. I'm like a band that tours people's houses playing when they're not around. When Kathy said, I love poetry, I thought, well, that's because it's going to happen here. It's going to contain that remark. After it, enjoys your fire. When Kathy said, wait till you see the morning, I said, I'm excited, though it sounded like I was dead. I don't have a working voice, I just have a voice that comes out the way it wants apart from me. I think of voices I admire and try to use them, and you know how your friends' shirts are, sometimes it does look good. These jeans are dead, they're getting replaced, though not till I finish my novel. Robert Walser did huge things in tiny spaces. If I say thank you at one more gas station, I'm going to start believing oil is God. But it's when I'm still in a landscape, the numbers flip, the land is great. So this one, I have this little practice. When I lived in California, I started driving up and down the coast in my car, and I had this danger of like writing poems on my knee, which I think most poets who drive do, and it's like the text message accident. You're very close to death. So I started recording my poems, and so these few poems I'm going to read now are like a little experiment. The first bunch were great. They all sucked after that, I think. But They go kind of fast, but just imagine driving up the coast in a warm car. It'll be good for us. Number one, with music. This is the emerging possibility of writing this way down a thimble of a street with a cake of a view, bushy imported trees, and the pop music given to me by some young person, in fact, the one person I know. Two, it was when I only spoke to graduate students. Those cars enter like a spider drizzle. Look at me, sun-drenched black, using my foot instead of my toes for a change. I count this road. I read that chain where you sit down is easier fat than fast food. What do you know? Red trucks with their hiccup front, Grant Wood roads. I know you're not a microphone. I know you're God. I know what catches me and stops me all the time and fills the rest and fills the bill and swells and comes down. Number 3, peach. My need to meet the new technology head-on, Tommy's Restaurant, San Clemente State Park, a red car zipping past a lump of cheese wall they built for some purpose to look like the houses they built overhead. Peach, peach, peach. Number 4, palm tree. I use my nail to write, the pressure of my hand. I mark time by palm trees that are and live next to one that was. A tall, brown, dead stick poking the sky that I use as a marker to say, turn here, right now. Number 5, driving. Driving, wiving with the land. Number 6, Eileen. That ride took at least an hour longer than it usually does. Big brown clown mountains. To my left, the last part of the trip. Here is wide open sky, and I forgot this, and I forgot that. And in my freedom, I forgot why I leave. Eileen, I leave my name. Fireworks. It was like a good one, right? It was like, thanks. Number 7, dark water. Big parkway is so disturbing to me. Some cars seem to erupt from the tar itself. They seem to pull themselves up from below the surface of the land. Though I don't think land, I mean something flat, something black, almost like a water that we're on, though a dark water that holds us. Number 8, car camera. My bullet regular, my two-fisted slim little gun of a man. Now to touch a button and turn the entire outside of my car into a camera so that everything that's going on out there could be coming in, could be held and recorded, because I don't want to point the camera. I want it to be as open as I am. What's moving be the thing that holds it all. I think that dot is me. Ferris wheel, bridge, trusty gray and pink scarves of secondary color decorating the light blue, but as we know, darkening sky. Number 9, destroying us. I don't mean to romanticize this thing that's destroying us all. I would happily drive more than 2 hours. No, I would romanticize this thing that's destroying us. I would drive a couple of hours for friendship. Number 10, ball. Is there anything about oil we don't know already? Like we're driving on our own limited past, something that's ancient, like the history of this ball we're driving these cars on, the fluid of everything and everybody that ever was here. We're draining that just to get around. And it's nice that I could feel around in the dark to say these things, to touch a button, to make it light, and then go out. 11, the lines. We're both here in the dark, and I can't feel you. I don't know what you're saying. Just stay in your lines. Number 12, man's beauty. We go this way and you go that. Things are a lot better for us now. A man's beauty remains the one thing you are absolutely not allowed to discuss. It's not a subject, he'll tell you, so his beauty winds up being like that of God. You can be yammering outside of the castle. God's not going to come out just so you can see what the... Oh, shut up. So this is a whole other reality. This is a poem called High, and it's for a poet named Steve Carey, who was from California. And he died in the 80s or the 90s, but his Selected just came out. And it was kind of like this California version of the New York School, the way he spoke, because it was all italics, talking like a kind of kid who grew up in California, and every bit of conversation was like quoting from the movies in this kind of macho guy way. But also he really loved sex, and so the reading was a very hot reading. So I wrote this during it. You made me smell. I didn't smell at all before I met you. Smells are pouring out of my clothes, feet, my socks, my hair. This is gross. You've made me monstrous, and I love it. I knew a man who laughed at himself for being this way, stinking of love. It was what he was, a stinking factory of his love, lying there all day, going out to get a smoke. I'm the East Coast version of that since I met you, since the era of my famous resistance to you ended. It began like the wind. I'm a window to the world. The mailman can see me. He waves. Children out there playing. It's even this way when I'm out there, except when I hold your hand. I want it to be this exception. I've become not a woman or man. The heart pumps. The man is dead and it's spring. It's a smelly season, don't you think? The earth knows. The bugs are beginning to look around. You're throwing your mother's old stuff out. Your friends are beginning to understand. I want to show mine something different, the ripples I've become. I'm influence, the way language changes, rocks heal and burn, meat stretches. Your round little animal face keeps coming around the corner, but oh no, now you're coming down. I'm looking up. Woof. This one, there was this 20th century American poet belief that the thing that we were doing that was so exciting was using this new language. It was like that. We got a lot of mileage out of that for a while. And then, it rotted, that thought rotted in many ways. But one moment it really rotted was at the beginning of the war, where suddenly there was just this Americanism that was about language. But like any Americanism, started to feel, I think, foul to artists, but particularly to poets, because it was the language that they used and we couldn't get out of it. So this is sort of about that, but also I read it here because when I wrote it, I thought, how great to get this published, in England or whatever. Well, this is the subject of the poem. Nobody wanted this poem, so I share it with you now. It's called That Country. I've just never known what to call that country. If I say England, I don't think I sound so smart. I keep tripping up on their language, which is English. Shouldn't their country be the same? Britain seems wrong. Does anyone go to Britain? People go to London, that's where they go. There's really no country at all, just a city, huge, old, haven't been there for a while. And UK is just a concept, a fashion statement, an economy. It seems you could have a relationship with that, but you wouldn't go there. You would allude. Though it includes everything, doesn't it? The UK, Ireland, Scotland, England, all of it. England is right in there, but no place else, which is why I never say it. But what about the language they speak? English. My penmanship sharpens up. I go to school. Slowly the words appear in a line. Could I write in that language, think in it? Do I? Am I missing something? I really think a lot. The second L in really staggered into a Y. The letters got drunk. I wanted to fuck up this language and blame its nameless homeland. The victors got drunk. They came and came. The words were never the same again. In the last century, it came to us to speak American, which means to speak where you land, which means nothing now. Not proud, but invasive. Not the language, not the place, not them, not us, neither an island, nor a continent, nor a world. A spin without a home, an edgy feeling, a coin on its side speaking up. I think I'm just going to read one more. The only thing you need to know about this is, well, you all know, if you fly, you've been trapped in airports for hundreds of hours in the past year, right? It's just, if you get, you just, as soon as you get to the airport, you're like a victim of the airlines, and you could be there for days. So I was making a simple trip to El Paso, and I was there, I can't tell you how long I was. And I had this new girlfriend, and so we were having this, since we're both female, we were having this face-off about cooking. Like, nobody was going to cook for the other. It was like, I don't cook. That's funny, I don't cook either. So we're spending hundreds of dollars in restaurants. And then finally, she broke down and said, I'll cook for you. And that was great. So I'm sitting at Dallas-Fort Worth discussing the menu. And so it gets to be, she'll cook fish. And I'm like, good. She's like, what kind of fish do you want? And I'm like, no eyes. She was like, okay. And I was like, and no scales. And she was like, all right, I get it. The perfect faceless fish. So, and then I had many hours to write this poem. So it's essentially the fish speaks. And weirdly, if you know this band, these guys, Japanther, they invited me into the studio. So part of this will be a song. So I'm breaking into a new medium soon. It is a miracle that I should speak to delight you. I feel like a flag, more or less, but music is my breeze. I have many friends, rest assured. You have given me my water, and for this I must thank you. You have been described as elegant in your time, and it is long, the road to go. I am honored to accompany you. A picture is simply what I am, an old crease, a perfect book. You will miss me in your sterile anticipation of something to hang this picture on. I come and go, an edible saint. But if you feast on me, you will be hungry. I know your intelligence, carnal somehow, and I began to speak when you began to want me. Please don't interrupt. I cross my legs. I flood the darkened rooms of art for a while. And frankly, that moment is gone. We could only talk through our eyes, and now that is gone. But this is deeper than the marrow. We don't need rods, cones, those Sanskrit piles of things. I am seeing through a stain right now in your love. I am swimming for years in a sudden absence of trouble in a deftly handled conversation. I, a luminous fish, felt in this spectacle of impossibility a fragrant graze upon the world, an intermittent twitch, whisper. If I had hands, I would touch everyone. I would vanish in the green of the background that goes on, made by those who recognize it that way. There is always something better to do. Here's the hook for the song. I live in a terminal, and so do you. Listen, we are trying to end everything by this enormous silence, brief. But it was the old thing, so it shall be very loud, very loudish in the squabbles we have about right and wrong, and where the flagpole is, and will we ever have enough space to play the game? I am deeply knowing you and feel you have chosen me for this conversation before it's cooked, before anything is prepared, anything at all. The lesser details, never mind the first exquisite choice that brought me into being, this conversation, a fishy birth. I've had you in my pocket, it's all that I know, but a knowing that is useless. Without this acknowledgement in a many-chambered room, ew, is that what you said? Enormous, darkly, I accept it. I flow around and fold into everything your comic, desultory contempt, which I'm beginning to think functions as glue for you. The prettiness for me is the opening city, and moving through it with you, the young old fold around your mouth, seismic, trust that. I am gold in the reconciliation, gold in the anticipation, paradise, great ambiance. What's available is not of any use to what is me today, a stoic, longing symbol of studying peace in outlandish quarters. Your long room in the night, your whole long body, which is faceless too. To acquire your trust is of utmost importance to me. I am foolish, talking fish. The time is here for me to make promises to you that is sometimes standing in a bakery, laughing, becomes professional wife with empty folders, and I see the muscle embedded, the one that can't be removed, in the beloved text that is offered. A torso-sized drink to me. Each time I break the surface, turn around, bubbles cascading from the incommensurate path of my tail, tentacle, limbs. You make me enough, so I hold a cup, gasping with laughter. In the T-shirts covered with arcane scribbles, carry the message, awkward grins and phones to their ears. Yours are wired to everything there is. You're an impossible telephone. I lift my head for the last sip of your ew. A lamb leaps over the fens. The arms I would have, we would hold each other, and I am waiting. No difficulty with gold. As I told your mother, I have obtained access to an uncontrolled intimacy. Fear not. Certainly I did not phrase it like that, but I met her in the most advanced communication terrain and exchanged messages concerning our difficulties with God and man. I am beginning to know I am gold, a transforming ship. The clipped end of an utterance I was saving for you when I saw your swinging light, the door approach, and everything moves close. Thanks.